This update is kind of awesome. Just so you don't get too excited, I'll show you what I did to set up this moment. In this terminal, I manually ran a ClearML session command to create a ClearML session. It was actually this command right here, except that the Docker image is actually Python 3.9 because it's smaller. Anyway, so I ran this command and it opened up a running session and it created the SSH tunnel. And then it says that we can connect to the session using this SSH command with this password right here. So this is already running. All right, I'll go into extension.ts and I'll run the extension. And now here's the version of the extension, the development version that's running. And you can see I've added some nicer icons and some buttons here. And there's a refresh button to refresh the sessions. And also automatically when you open up the menu, the refresh action is triggered once. So you don't actually have to click this button for an initial refresh to happen and display these sessions. And if we do these toggle menus, I grabbed a lot of metadata and displayed them as tree items underneath the session tree items. So these are nested. And also there's a copy to clipboard button on all of them, which copies the various values of the attributes to the clipboard. Okay, but the coolest thing is that if I click on this play button for the session that I started, that's currently running on the EC2 instance, I'll click the button and it sets up a tunnel and it totally connects. And now if I open the folder, I'll just open up this root folder and there it is. We've connected to a ClearML session. And if you look at the original window, you can see that it says that we successfully connected to root at localhost 8022. And also I copied the password to the session to the clipboard. So because I've recently logged into this session, it didn't prompt me for the password, but if it had, all I have to do is paste and the password's already in my clipboard. This is so cool. There's still quite a bit of work to be done for this to work outside of the context of a demo, so let me show you how this is actually working right now. In our extension.ts file, I registered a command called attach to session, and I'm having it call a function called connect to Remote-SSH. The function's actually pretty short. I hard-coded the SSH path that we'll SSH into. And this is the first flaw, but we'll come back to that in a sec. Assuming we could have an SSH path, this block of code right here, I found on a GitHub issue. And basically it opens up a new VS Code window and passes in this argument that makes it so that when the VS Code window first opens, VS Code issues an SSH command. And if it succeeds, then it pops a message that says successfully connected to whatever the SSH path was. And if it fails, then it has a similar error message. It also calls this function copy password to clipboard. And in this function, I've hard-coded the password pass. And then I use this line of code here to write that to our clipboard and then show that that succeeded to the user. So what's not being done here is we're not automatically detecting which SSH name to use in the connection, and we're not detecting the password either. So this only happens to work now for the SSH tunnel that I just opened up before this demo. But I think that sometimes ClearML changes the SSH name, like for example, they changed the port that you need to connect to, and so this is not going to work in all cases. We have to somehow discover this from the logs. And similar to this password, when I ran my ClearML session command, I forced the password to be pass, and then if you remember, that value was displayed here in the logs. So right now I'm having the extension hard code the password pass. We should also detect what the password is from these logs when we start up the tunnel. So basically we need to parse the logs and we need to grab out this line. And in addition to that, we shouldn't have to rely on the user having run this command manually at all. We should have the VS Code extension. We should have the VS Code extension run the ClearML session command. But even with these limitations, still, it's super exciting. And the buttons in the extension look really good. And it's cool that we have this ClearML icon up here in the top left. The next thing I'm going to work on is trying to run that ClearML session command and processing the logs that come out of it. So that my machine both starts the session using the VS Code extension and then connects to it. One thing that I or someone else should really do is right now, in order to develop on this extension, I'm relying on an EC2 instance that I've created in my AWS account, which other contributors to this project don't have, and that's a hassle to set up. And I'm also relying on my personal subscription, which is a free subscription, to the ClearML SaaS platform. I think it would be way better if we had a Docker Compose file in our repository that could run an entire ClearML instance locally for development. And we could also hopefully make it so that when we trigger a ClearML session, that Docker container that the ClearML session would actually just be run on my laptop instead. That would be a much better development environment, because then any contributor could just come into the repository and run Docker Compose up, and then put a special configuration file in their home folder, and then immediately run the extension pointed at that local ClearML instance. Until we get something like that set up, it's going to be hard for people besides me to actually run real ClearML commands, because you have to go through the whole overhead of signing up for ClearML and then running a ClearML agent somewhere, whether that's on your laptop or on a cloud VM somewhere. All right, thanks for watching this.